It says, because the families are not arguing WSU employed the murder, they're arguing something more abstract, that WSU created conditions that made the murders possible. Dude. If this is your first time tuning in, I'm your host, Birdie. This is a contrarian thinking live stream. So if you are easily rattled or if you're offended on behalf of others, you're not going to like me. You're not going to like the people in the chat. But we like to question the narrative, think past the headlines. And if you're known as the tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theorist in your friend group, you have found your people. You are amongst friends. Welcome. Some upcoming events quick. We just had Outcast on Wednesday next week, November 19th. We got Dago on Thursday, November 20th. I'm super excited. I think this is a very overdue stream. I know Sue had been in and out. She was sick. So we finally got November 20th all lined up. Sue Revelation Tarot. Here are some things that I want to talk about. We're going to start with this video. This video comes from Finding Their Mess Ups by Senor Wazowski, Mike Wazowski. And it's not that long of a video. I had to take a screenshot because the thumbnail was extremely graphic and gory. So this is just a really interesting find. I think people have probably pointed this out before. If you haven't, it is a 2-minute video. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to let this play. Type of 1 to make sure you guys can hear the volume when it plays.
Okay, so I want to show you guys something. First of all, watch this. They're clearing the house. Just watch. Okay, let's slow it down. Watch right here. Now we got 2 cops clearing the house. It's the first time they're realizing this. They just found Xana and Ethan. They're going upstairs. They're clearing the house. See nothing right here. Still nothing. Watch. Now,
boom.
These are forensic stickers, I think, in my opinion, to show floor and direction where the bodies are.
Okay, so somebody's saying, Birdie, those aren't victim markers. Those are name tags from their career fair. Senor posted about it. Okay, so it's been debunked. Got it. All right. I did not see the debunking video, but I thought it was a good find. Either way, it's interesting. Things like that, I'll never if I don't know that it's been debunked, I'm still going to show it because I think it's thought-provoking. And then that is also another point of the hive. Like, okay, it's been debunked. This was from a career fair. It is what it is. I'm going to read something from Cat's Mojo, and then we're going to get into some pictures that I found that I have not shown on stream yet that I'm just curious about. And Cat's Mojo says, she sent this in Discord. This is from Miss Potts. And Miss Potts says, is this true? It looks like the families of the victims plan to sue Washington State University for $100 million in regards to Bryan Kohberger. I can't wait to read that filing if we ever get to. The Medium article Jenna cites in her post is only viewable in its entirety when you make an account. However, I took the liberty of creating an account so others don't have to do so. Well, thank you, Miss Potts. Here's the full article from Jenna's post. It's directly taken from the Medium website. The families of the 4 University of Idaho students who were murdered in November of 2022 have filed a Washington State tort claim, giving notice of their intentions to claim damages from the state of Washington for the sum of $100 million each. In July of 2025, Bryan Kohberger was sentenced to 4 life sentences without the possibility of parole for the murders of Maddie Mogan, Kaylee Gonzalez, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin in Moscow, Idaho. Kohberger was a doctoral criminology justice student and employee at nearby Washington State University. And thank you, James Moen, for the super chat saying, it's an honor to support you, Birdie. Brilliant young man. Applause, applause, applause. Well, thank you for the support, James. I appreciate it. The victims were housemates along with Kernodle's boyfriend living off campus. The brutal murders in the rural town garnered national media attention almost immediately. The age of the victims And the fact that 2 other housemates and a dog were home at the time of the murders and unharmed was shocking. Yes, it was. The Idaho State Police and the FBI assisted the Moscow Police Department. The perpetrator left a leather knife sheath at the crime scene. Law enforcement used genetic genealogy to match DNA from the sheath to Kohberger. The victims allege that WSU brought Bryan Kohberger to the Pullman Moscow community where it employed, housed, and paid Kohberger almost immediately. Kohberger began making students, faculty, and staff uncomfortable and engaged in behavior that was threatening and predatory and that amounted to sexual discrimination, sexual harassment, and stalking. Many WSU employees who are mandatory reporters were aware of Kohberger's predatory behavior. WSU received more than a dozen formal complaints about Kohberger's inappropriate behavior that was occurring both in and out of the classroom. Despite having significant control over Kohberger, WSU failed to appropriately act in response to his behavior and the clear and present threat that he posed. In the state of Washington, a third party such as Washington State University can be civilly liable for a death caused by one of their employees. At the time of the murders, Bryan Kohberger was a, quote, teaching assistant. Even if an act, in this case the murder, falls outside the scope of employment, the university can be held liable for their own negligence in hiring, supervising, or retaining the employee. A formal complaint has not yet been filed with the court, so the details of the allegations are not yet known. However, the shocking impact of the murders on the victims and the community is visible to everyone. The emotional impact on survivors who wrongfully lost a loved one is devastating. Calculating a monetary value on this type of pain is nearly impossible. Wrongful death lawsuits have been used to promote a positive change. They can lead to greater corporate and government accountability, better safety protocols, and new legislation. We all hope that this lawsuit will also lead to a positive change to the nation's universities and provide greater protection for the young men and women who place their trust in these institutions. ETA. According to the WSP, the Washington State Patrol website, a tort is a wrong that involves a breach of civil duty other than a contractual duty owed to somebody else, a personal injury, or as a civil action other than a breach of contract. A person who suffers a tortious injury is entitled to receive damages, usually monetary compensation, from the person or people responsible or liable for those injuries. News Nation has also reported on this topic as well. You can watch their video on the matter here. And it's Ashley Banfield. Couple of things that stick out to me. The legislation, kind of a little bit odd. I understand that this article is generalizing, but we know with genetic genealogy and how they caught them, right? Being Bryan Kohberger tied to this, if this is a giant lawsuit, that only gives strength to argue legislation to use IgG in the future as proof that this does help. This is real life cases. You can refer to them. The victims allege that WSU brought Bryan Kohberger to the Pullman Moscow community where it employed, housed, and paid Kohberger. Very interesting choice. It says the victims allege that WSU brought Bryan Kohberger to the Pullman Moscow community. And thank you, James Moen, moderators. Much love, respect, and appreciation for you always. Yes. Bows to the mods. They are the best in the game, hands down. Now, what do you guys think about that? Like, what does that mean that WSU brought Bryan Kohberger to Pullman Moscow? Like, where I went to college, does that mean that my college town brought me there if I applied and they let me in? You know? It just seems like weird wording because it says the victims allege. So this is clearly something that they're stating is about to be in the filing. Giddy up 9241. I worry that if the families win a suit, then BK's plea overturned, that they will still get to keep the money. I don't know how that works. That's a good point. That's a good question. Let's ask good old Chat GPT. It says the law gets wonderfully weird here. It's like a snake trying to swallow its own tail. So a defendant takes a plea, the family sue a third party, whether it's a university, a hotel, an employer for a wrongful death. The civil case settles or goes to verdict. Later, the defendant is exonerated. Here is the brain melter. Does the civil money have to be returned because the, quote, killer turned out not to be the killer? The short answer is almost always no. The families keep the settlement. But what if the person who did kill them never went or worked at that university? If the actual killer turns out to have zero connection to the university, whether that means they're not a student, not an employee, not a visitor, then the civil settlement with the university still stands. That sounds counterintuitive at first, but it's exactly how wrongful death liability works. If you think of it this way, civil liability isn't about who killed the victims. It's about whether the university could or should have prevented the deaths on their property. Well, it's not on their property. A random killer with no affiliation actually strengthens the negligence theory in many cases. Hold on. All right, now I got to start asking it specific to this case. But in the Idaho 4 case, the victims' families are suing WSU, and yet this death occurred at an off-campus house in Idaho, what if it was not a student or anyone associated with WSU? The rules of civil liability don't care about the criminal storyline the way that most people assume they do. They care about duty, foreseeability, and who had the power to prevent harm. If no one involved in the murders was associated with WSU and the murders happened off campus in Idaho, how can families still sue WSU? And if the wrong person was charged, does that blow up the lawsuit? Civil lawsuits target the deepest pockets with the closest duty, not the killer. The killer's identity has very little to do with WSU's potential liability. WSU could be sued even if the killer wasn't a WSU student, employee, had zero affiliation with WSU, the crime happened off campus, the person criminally accused later. It says because the families are not arguing WSU employed the murder, they're arguing something more abstract, that WSU created conditions that made the murders possible. Dude, wow. Wow. Think about this. The families, the lawsuit doesn't matter if the families end up finding out the killer wasn't Bryan Kohberger, but they're arguing not that WSU employed the murder. They're arguing something more abstract, that WSU created conditions that made the murders possible. Could it be all of the NIJ and DOJ funding? Is that why Josh Hurwitz is there? Is that why there's national security? Is that why it's redacted? Is this funding and some sort of study for predictive criminal behavior that we've read so much about, that Bryan Kohberger's papers are written about, essentially? I don't know. Could it be what conditions made the murders possible if WSU is in a different state and it happened at an off-campus house for Idaho State, or in the University at the University of Idaho? Geez, I can't talk. Interesting. Now, this is the bottom of the stairwell downstairs, I believe. What do you guys notice about this photo? Laura got it right away. This is what I saw too. I zoomed in and I thought to myself, okay, there was a guy who stole his uncle's ATF jacket and he walked in there and he's got no charges from impersonating an ATF agent. And he has a literal ISP report that says the victims look like they were double tapped. And it looked like somebody went deer hunting inside that house. I would say, is that shotgun pellets? And I don't think that it's nail holes. Tell me why you'd have all of these nails. Like, there's nails along the side right here, and that's for hanging stuff. Okay, I don't think that's unusual. But all these, I'm just like, that's a lot. So, I mean, this is shotgun pellets in wood right there. Everything's not that quiet on the audios, though. You can hear a gun rack and you can hear what sounds like gunshots. He made no mention of anyone being stabbed. All of the victims were double tapped in the house. You guys tell me if this sounds like 2 gunshots in rapid succession. And now let's not forget about what we hear in this enhanced 911 call. And then to hear it from the family themselves.
Somebody went in and shot the party up and Kaylee was shot last night. Hey, Kaylee, somebody went in and shot the party up and Kaylee was shot. I was like, what? And I just threw my phone. I threw my phone. I started screaming. I started telling everybody to call Olivia and to get all her roommates on the phone. And I started calling Maddie.
He made, so all I'm saying is that I think there's definitely enough there to start to question, like, you know, even on Gunderson's body cam, there was a guy when he was canvassing the area. I just saw somebody bring this up. There was a guy who opened his door and he's like, I didn't hear any gunshots or anything. And I had some friends text me if I'm okay because they heard about gunshots. Whoa. That's weird. You got Chapin saying 2 a.m. will always be a dark hour. And I understand audio can be added. Audio can absolutely be manipulated, right? It can absolutely be manipulated. I can tell you, I didn't add anything to that, and I got all of these from the official documents. And if they're going to say that this was a stabbing, they should have removed that stuff. Maybe they should have, you know, done it differently. I don't know. But the neighbors heard nothing, even in that audio there. I mean, it's crazy. Okay, so somebody just said, "Who is that tall to shot up in a line. If it was a gun hole, the trajectory would be slanted up, not center. Okay, hear me out. What I'm trying to say is if you're on the ground level about to go, I'll just draw this. So here's the stairs. Okay, underneath, these are the stairs. This is the driveway is right here. Okay, so here's the door. If somebody was running down the stairs, you're right. It makes no sense that it would be like that. But if somebody was going up the stairs and the person was standing here, right? And if the guy's 6 feet tall and somebody's running up the stairs and they were to pew, 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 that's the alignment that I would see happening. Does that make sense? I know that's shit art skills, but that's the way that I would see that angle being possible. And then, you know, would that line up with the area of where we saw those holes underneath? I don't know, because you can't really see the holes in this wood. Maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-ish. I don't know. I thought this was interesting because I feel like these footprints became way more visible with this filter on than I've noticed. Like all of this down here. I've shown this one in the past as well, just once. That to me looks like a cigarette butt, that when you apply a filter, it kind of looks like that. This is like a shape-shifting transformer car. Okay. I'll try to show you guys this. I've done this before, but it's been a while. But if you look at this car, like everyone's like, oh, it's like a Mustang. It's got a loud thing. And then watch when it goes behind this pole. I don't know. It turns into what kind of looks like a Pathfinder, doesn't it? Can you guys kind of see an entire ass of an SUV here? It's like, again, it just kind of goes to like, is this manipulated? Because I can tell you that like this with the mud flap right here at the bottom, all the way up to the front. I mean, that looks more like an SUV than a car. You can see through the windows here, taillights up high. It's got the roof racks. I mean, that's totally a different car, right? That looks like a Nissan Armada. You can swear it off. And then it'll change again. You can see the wheel well sits up here. You can still see the back of it. You can see 4. I don't know. I don't know. Like that's totally an SUV. That's not a Mustang.
You shouldn't park anywhere here. It's only the park of the part of the lot.
And they changed their own color on it. I feel like this then starts to kind of look almost like a truck with a giant light bar on the bottom. Doesn't that look like it's got a bright light bar? Like kind of something like this. Right here. That's what it kind of looks like to me. And like here, I see a big ass diesel truck. You know what I'm saying? I feel like I've seen like 3 different vehicles. It's the transforming car. I feel like I could totally see now. Long bed. Here's the mirror. Back tires. Light bar. So I don't even know how you would do that. Change the color red. Can't do that for some reason. I could try these. Ooh, that's a little better. It totally just, it looks like a big truck. It sounds like a big truck. I mean, look at the distance from the tail light to the front. Did they mirror it? I wonder if we mirrored it, if we could see it better.
No, I'm not.
It's getting scared. Not to be that guy. We shouldn't park anywhere here. It's only the park of the part of the lot.
I hope you all have an awesome day. birdieshivemind@gmail.com. If you got something for a Hive Mind Find, or if you're already in the Discord, please post it in there. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. Stay safe. Cheers.